Hello humans, welcome back to another React video. I am your host, a human as well, and today we're going to be watching every Apollo mission explained because I want to know what they all are. I watched like the first three videos I did, the last three videos I did, were all about the Apollo 8, and I had no idea what the whole thing was all about. So now I'm going to watch kind of this overview of all the different Apollo missions. Before we get started, I am in the process of updating my picture and audio setup. So that is something I have begun to work on. It's not going to happen progressively. It'll probably happen all at once the space that I want to record everything in has been fully built and fully taken care of. And I've got everything all set up there. So just so you know, I know the audio video on these reactions is not stellar. Um, Definitely not out of this world, pun intended, but I'm working on it. So in the meantime, I'm going to keep recording videos and we'll see what things look like. So let's get started.
Apollo 1. This was the first crewed mission of the Apollo program, intended to be a low Earth orbit test of the command and service module. It never flew.
Hmm.
During a launch rehearsal on January 27, 1967, a cabin
67. All right. So I wasn't sure when the space program actually started, or at least when the Apollo program started. So 67 is the Apollo 1. I know in December of 68 was when the Apollo 8 happened. So that's a pretty good progression, right? And then 69, I believe, was the moon landing, which I think was Apollo 9, but I guess this video will tell us.
fire erupted, killing astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and
Mm.
Roger Chaffee. The disaster was a catastrophic but necessary crucible for NASA.
So I remember in the Apollo 8 videos that I watched, they mentioned this fire. I didn't realize it was the Apollo 1 versus like the Apollo 7 or something, but yeah, that's horrible that it killed three astronauts. Um, I guess I guess the Apollo missions have been rife with their own disasters, right? Or was this the only one for Apollo? I guess we'll see in this video. The Discovery, I know, that's the one everyone knows about, but I don't know what mission classification the Discovery was in.
It exposed fatal flaws in the spacecraft's design, including a pure oxygen
Wow,
atmosphere
that thing's
and an
charred.
inward opening hatch, and forced a complete safety overhaul that ultimately made the Apollo hardware reliable enough to reach the moon. After the fire, NASA made key fixes. They replaced the inward opening hatch with an outward opening quick release hatch.
That's interesting. I wondered. I mean, it's such a small capsule. I wonder why they would have, in the first place, made it inward opening. I guess. I guess if you have it inward opening, you don't have a chance of something like wind or something playing a part if it's outside. I guess, but I don't with such a small amount of space because those things are tiny. They're like the guy in the last video was saying it's like sitting inside of a Volkswagen Beetle. Those cars are small, so I would imagine you'd want as much space as possible. But maybe there's some engineering advantage to having it open inwards instead of outwards.
That could be opened in seconds. They removed or reduced flammable materials and Velcro inside the cabin and
Velcro,
tightened all flammability rules.
interesting.
On the ground, they used a safer nitrogen oxygen mix instead of pure oxygen. In
Okay,
flight, they kept low pressure oxygen that was much safer. These changes carried through every later mission
it's a weird
and are a
picture.
big reason Apollo became reliable. Apollo 4.
Oh, okay.
The debut
So
of
they didn't do Apollo 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then. Okay, so they just like skipped around. Like it looks like they still went in order, but they went from 1 to 4. That's like a three generation jump right there. I wonder if they did that just because they made so many changes, or maybe they were naming it different. Like maybe it's the month that they are launching is assigned a number, or I don't really know how it works. Um, but it's interesting that they went from Apollo 1 to Apollo 4.
of the moon rocket. This was the first ever all up flight test of the colossal Saturn V.
Oh,
In a high stakes gamble, NASA chose to launch
the Saturn V is crazy. I went to Kennedy Space Center a few months ago, and I got to like they have a hangar where you walk in and the Saturn V is like above you. I think it's actually the banner image of my YouTube channel. Um, but it's like it's so ginormous. It is ridiculously big. I I I couldn't believe how big the thing was. Like I'm 6'3", and like me standing next to something that makes me feel like an ant is a rare occurrence. It only happens with like an aircraft carrier that made me feel that way. Um, Skyscrapers, obviously, but I don't really interact with skyscrapers too often. But I mean, this thing is like a skyscraper, except the way NASA has it down in Florida is it's laying down, and so you can like walk the length of it. But it's so ginormous. It's crazy how big that thing is. But I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I don't know a whole lot about the Saturn V, to be honest. I'd like to. We should watch some videos about it, but conceptually and having seen it, I'm a big fan of the Saturn V.
Launched the entire three-stage rocket at once, rather than testing each stage individually. The Uncrewed mission was a spectacular success. The launch shook the ground for miles.
Wow.
The stages separated flawlessly.
Now I can say I saw recently when I went down to Kennedy Space Center, I saw a SpaceX rocket launch, just a standard Falcon 9 with some satellite payload. Um, and I was 13 miles away from the launch pad when it launched, and I could feel it reverberating in my chest as it was lifting off. It was the coolest experience I've ever had, and I plan to go down hopefully to see the Artemis. The Artemis is supposedly going to be launching in a couple weeks. It was supposed to launch when I was down there in January, and then they delayed it to February, and then they delayed it to March, and now it's April. April 1st, actually. April Fool's. Hopefully, it's not an April Fool's joke, but my brother and I are planning to go down and hopefully catch the launch. Hopefully, it's not scrubbed. If it's scrubbed, we'll have to come back home to North Carolina because we can't just wait around in Florida until they decide to launch the thing. But, anyways, that's going to be great. I'm going to film it, obviously. I'm sure I'll upload it here. This is my space channel. I might as well put space stuff on it that I see, but I just thought that was really cool to mention.
And the spacecraft was sent on a high-speed re-entry to simulate a return from the moon. Apollo 4 single-handedly proved that the Saturn V worked and that the path to the moon was powered by a reliable vehicle.
Cool.
Apollo 5.
5.
The
All
test
right.
of the Spider.
I've seen that.
This uncrewed mission was the
It's at
first
the
space flight
Smithsonian.
of the Lunar module, the ungainly but crucial vehicle designed to land on the moon. Launched into Earth orbit aboard a
Oh,
smaller Saturn 1B rocket.
huh. Oh, what do they say? I'll rewind it in just a second. That's a very different looking rocket to the Saturn V. It looks like one I saw when I was at the Kennedy Space Center. They have a rocket garden. Coolest name for a garden, by the way, the rocket garden. And it's just all these different rockets from the past eras of NASA that are just standing up, and you can go and walk around them and see them. That looks like one of the ones that's there. Not the top half, actually. The bottom half, the booster half, looks like with all the fins and everything. They've got one of those laying down outside of the Space Center. Big advocate of the Space Center, by the way. It's a great place. You should go if you're in Florida. You're looking for something to do. It's a day trip. I could have spent 3 days there, but I only had one, unfortunately. Anyways, what was this one
The L
called?
Launched into Earth orbit aboard a smaller Saturn 1B rocket,
Saturn
the LM's
1B.
critical
Okay.
systems were put through their paces. Engineers remotely fired its descent engine to simulate a landing burn and its ascent engine to simulate lifting off from the moon.
I wonder how powerful that engine has to be because there's less gravity on the moon, right? So I guess you wouldn't need as much thrust to get off of the moon as you would to get off the Earth, right?
The mission was a resounding success, proving that the first true spacecraft, designed to operate only in a vacuum, was ready to carry astronauts.
Cool.
Apollo 6.
All right.
The necessary failure. This was the second and final uncrewed test flight of the Saturn V rocket, and it was plagued with major problems.
Hmm.
During ascent, violent pogo oscillations caused structural damage. Two engines on the second stage shut down prematurely, and the third stage failed to reignite in orbit. Despite not meeting its objectives, the flight was mission critical. It exposed dangerous flaws that could have been catastrophic on a crewed launch.
I don't know if that capsule is currently on display at NASA. It looks obviously it's on display somewhere. I don't recognize that space. That no pun intended. I don't recognize that display setting. So I don't know if that's when I saw. I saw a lot of different cool stuff when I went to the Space Center, but I don't know if that one's there. It's interesting that I wish he gave the dates for all of these because I'd be interested to see the progression, how quickly. But it's interesting that like Apollo 5 was flawless, and then I'm assuming they didn't do a whole lot to it except for like put an astronaut payload on top of it. And then Apollo 6 was like rife with issues. That's really interesting that was a progression that happened.
The data gathered from these failures allowed engineers to solve the problems, making the rocket safe and reliable for all future Apollo missions. Apollo 7.
7.
Commanded by Wally Schirra, it was the first crewed Apollo flight,
Okay.
successfully testing the redesigned command and service module in Earth orbit for 11 days.
Wow.
Its primary objective was to be a full shakedown of the spacecraft that had been grounded since the Apollo 1 fire. The mission was a resounding technical success,
Cool.
proving the CSM was space-worthy and capable of rendezvous and docking maneuvers.
All right. So what at this point in the space program, I'm unclear. Was there already a space station operational, or am I thinking way ahead? Like I don't know when. We'll have to watch a video on space stations. I only found out the other day that there's more than one. I literally thought there was just one International Space Station, but apparently there's like 7 or 8 of them. So we'll have to watch a video on this channel. By the way, I will link it in the description. It's called Supernova. He's got a lot of different videos explaining all the different types of X relating to space. So like all the different Apollos, all the different Geminis. He's got a video. I want to do the Geminis. All the different space stations. He's got that video, which is how I learned that there were more than one. So I'll link it down in the comments, or not in the comments. I'll link it in the description, and then I'm definitely going to react to more of his content just because it's very informative, and I appreciate the breakdown of all these different things into their components.
It was the critical first step in clearing the path for lunar missions. Apollo 8.
Familiar with this
Originally
one
planned as an Earth orbit test, the mission was changed to an ambitious lunar orbit flight.
now.
Commanded by Frank Borman, the crew of Apollo 8 became the first human beings to ever leave Earth's gravity, orbit the moon, and witness the far side with their own eyes.
Yeah, so it was Frank Borman. This is the first 3 videos I watched on this channel. Was these 3 guys talking about it? Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders. And yeah, I was unclear in those videos, and if you go back and watch those, you can see how uncertain I was and how many questions I had. But yeah, it seemed like they were like just on the fly, like, oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna go to the moon this time because everything's lining up really well. And he seems to confirm that here is that it was supposed to be an Earth orbital mission, and then at some point they decided, hey, everything's lined up really well, all the tech specs look great, we're gonna go to the moon on this one, or we're gonna try. And then these 3 guys, like independently of NASA, decided because they were out of radio communication to get the final confirmation, they like decided on their own initiative that they were gonna go to the moon, or at least orbit it, anyways.
Their Christmas Eve broadcast from lunar
Yep.
orbit,
Yep.
featuring
I
the
talked about that picture.
Earthrise photograph, was a profound moment for humanity and a decisive political victory in the space race. The mission proved that navigation to and from the moon was possible. The switch to the moon came late in 1968 because the lunar module wasn't ready. Rather than
Oh
wait,
yeah,
NASA
they
sent
said
the
that in the
command
other video.
module
I didn't
all
realize
the way
that's
to
what
lunar
that was.
orbit. The crew performed the
Hmm.
first translunar injection, read from Genesis on Christmas Eve, and captured Earthrise, which helped people see our planet in a new way. Apollo 9.
Okay.
The full dress rehearsal in the safety of Earth orbit.
That I forget what they call that road there that like they bring the caterpillar platform thing out on, and like they're doing that tonight for the Artemis. I was gonna watch it live, but I've got stuff to do tonight. But I think I might still react to it. I think I can go back in tomorrow or something and look at the past live streams and watch it. It's basically just them moving the Artemis out to the pad. I am going to watch an Artemis video soon too, just because I want to be up to date on current events as well as learning about past events. But yeah, so that thing's really cool, and that just reminded me of that because I know that's happening tonight.
Orbit. This was the first crewed flight of the complete Apollo spacecraft, the Command and Service Module and the Lunar Module. The crew, commanded by James McDivitt, performed the first ever docking and undocking of the two vehicles and flew the LM independently for several hours. This mission was a crucial engineering test, proving that the strange looking lander could function as a self contained spacecraft and that astronauts could
It
successfully
literally
maneuver it.
looks like an alien craft. It's so cool.
Apollo 10.
Oh,
The
okay.
final
I didn't know. Okay, I thought the 9 was the one that landed on the moon. This is how little I know about space stuff. So I guess it wasn't the 9, so I have no idea which one it was. Was it the 10?
dress rehearsal at the moon. Commanded by Thomas Stafford, this mission did everything required for a lunar landing except for the landing itself. The crew flew the lunar module, nicknamed Snoopy, down to an altitude of
Snoop.
just 9 miles above the lunar surface, scouting the landing site for Apollo 11. It was the final, full scale verification of all procedures, hardware, and
Okay.
navigation in the lunar environment,
All right.
confirming that every piece of the puzzle was ready.
Wow. Look at that. Look at that TV. Look how thick it is. Oh my goodness. They have a recreation of this at the Kennedy Space Center. Sorry, I keep mentioning the Kennedy Space Center like you don't know, but you might not know if you're watching this video. I don't really know who my audience is going to be here. I'm kind of hoping it's just people who are casually into space stuff. Anyways, they have a reconstruction of that at the Kennedy Space Center. That's really cool. Um, so I guess it was the 11 that landed on the moon then.
Apollo 11, the fulfillment of a national goal.
Looks like it.
Commanded by Neil Armstrong,
Yep,
this was the
that's the one.
mission that put the first humans on the moon on July 20th, 1969. Armstrong and
July.
Buzz Aldrin landed the lunar module Eagle in the Sea of Tranquility, while Michael Collins orbited above in the command module. They spent just over 2 hours outside, collecting samples and deploying scientific experiments. The mission was a singular event in human history, a monumental technological achievement, and the definitive end of the space race.
And I will say, because I think it is worth saying, I do believe we landed on. I believe this is real. I believe this is factual information. I don't believe this is a conspiracy. I don't believe it's a soundstage in Nevada. I think we actually went to the moon. All right, that's just my opinion. All right. I'm planning on at some point on this channel watching that broadcast of that happening. I looked for it a few days ago. There's actually not as many sources for it, just because when you look up the landing, you get a lot of conspiracy videos popping up. So, but I'm sure I can find the actual full broadcast of that actually happening, and I'd love to watch it as the Americans watched it in the 60s when it happened. My dad was one of the ones who actually watched it live on television. He vividly remembers it, and I always just thought that was so cool that he got to see that live on television. So I'd love to react to that and see what he saw back then.
On descent, the computer threw 1201 and 1202 program alarms, but it kept running,
Hmm.
and Armstrong took more manual control to steer past a boulder field. They touched down with only seconds of fuel left, which
Wow,
adds real tension to the story.
that's crazy.
Apollo 12, the mission of pinpoint precision. The second lunar landing, commanded by Pete Conrad, had a key objective: to prove that Apollo could land at a specific target. The crew successfully set the lunar module Intrepid down just 600 feet from Surveyor 3, a robotic probe that had landed 2 years earlier.
That's pretty good. 600 feet? I mean, over the surface of an entire moon? I don't know how big the moon is. I know it's smaller than Earth, but that doesn't mean it's small. Um, but 600 feet, yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. That's a pretty good target.
They retrieved parts from the probe for analysis and conducted 2 moonwalks, demonstrating that Apollo was not just a proof of concept,
What are those, black and white stripy things? They look like snakes. I wonder what those are.
but a reliable tool for scientific exploration. Right after liftoff, the rocket was hit by two lightning strikes.
Wow.
Telemetry went crazy until the famous call SCE to AUX brought the systems back. On the moon, their color TV camera got ruined when it was pointed at the sun.
Hmm.
Even with those issues, the landing was razor accurate, and bringing home Surveyor 3 parts showed how precise and reusable Apollo techniques could be. Apollo 13, the successful failure. Commanded by
Okay.
Jim Lovell, this was
Oh,
intended to be the third lunar landing.
he was
2 days
from
into the
Apollo 8.
mission, an oxygen tank exploded, crippling the service module and forcing the crew to abandon their lunar objective.
Wow.
The mission instantly became a desperate rescue operation.
Hmm.
Using the lunar module as a lifeboat, the astronauts and mission control worked together to overcome one crisis after another to bring the crew safely back to Earth. It be-
Oh, that's the one the movie's about, right? Apollo 13. It's got Tom Hanks in it. I think that's. Don't get mad at me if I'm totally botching this and that one's about a different mission. But I think because I saw that movie at one point. I think it's Apollo 13 that it's about. I could be wrong. Should I react to space movies on this channel? Let me know.
became NASA's finest hour, a testament to human ingenuity under pressure. They had rising CO2 because the command module's square filters didn't fit the lunar module's round system. Mission Control walked the crew through building a boxy adapter from tape, a plastic bag, cardboard from the flight plan, and suit hoses.
That's
It looked like
crazy.
a little
That's crazy that they were able to like MacGyver a solution together and like figure out how to get home with just like the stuff they had. What a crazy story.
mailbox. It worked, and it kept the air safe. Apollo 14, the restoration of confidence. After the near disaster of Apollo 13, this mission, commanded by Alan Shepard, who was the first American in space, had to be perfect. Its objective
Wait,
was
he was the first American in space? So did he go up before Apollo or during Apollo? Because I thought NASA sent. I thought everything we've just covered is they sent 3-man teams every single time. But if he was the first one in space, does that mean he went outside of the Apollo missions with maybe, I don't know, Gemini or some other space station somewhere else in the world? That's interesting. I'll have to look him up.
to successfully land
I
at the
like that
Fra Mauro
spacesuit. That looks
Formation,
really cool.
the original target for Apollo 13. The mission succeeded, restoring faith in the Apollo hardware. Shepard famously hit 2 golf balls on the lunar surface, but more importantly,
It's
the
crazy.
mission resumed the scientific exploration of the moon. Apollo 15, the dawn of true scientific exploration. This was the first of the J missions, longer and more ambitious flights focused on deep science.
Hmm.
Commanded by David Scott, it was the first mission to carry and use the Lunar Roving Vehicle. This car-like rover allowed the astronauts to travel miles
Oh
from their
yeah,
landing site at the Hadley Rill.
they have that on display also at the Kennedy Space Center. Pretty crazy to get to see something in person that you know was on the surface of something other than Earth. The tires are really interesting. They're because they don't have air in them. I should do a video actually about the like rovers and stuff too. But yeah, the tires don't have air in them because I guess pressure or something. I don't know. It would make sense, I guess. But yeah, they're just like these like spring looking things. Really interesting stuff.
Transforming them from local surveyors into true field geologists. It represented a major upgrade in the program's scientific capability. They found the famous Genesis rock, a light-colored anorthosite that
Hmm.
likely came from the moon's early crust. Command Module pilot Al Worden performed the first deep space EVA to grab film canisters from the Sim Bay, literally a spacewalk between Earth and Moon.
Wow.
On splashdown, one parachute failed,
I
but
can
the
see that.
capsule was designed to land safely with two, which it did.
Nice.
Apollo 16, the mission to the lunar highlands. Commanded by John Young, this flight targeted the Descartes Highlands, a region believed to be formed by ancient volcanic activity. Using the lunar rover, the astronauts conducted extensive geological surveys, but the rocks they collected proved the area was not volcanic at all,
Hmm.
but was instead shaped by.
You see how much dust is on the ground there? That's crazy. I wonder. I'm curious about the surface of the moon. I'm sure I can find videos on it, but like every photo I see looks like it's kind of like a dust mud kind of consistency, and it's really interesting because I have we found evidence of water on the moon? I don't know if we have or haven't. I'm not up to date on that. I know everyone talks about Mars, and I guess we found evidence of water there at some point, and that was a big deal. I don't know, 8 years ago or something. But yeah, the surface looks really interesting. And is there wind? Is there an atmosphere on the moon? I don't know any of these. I don't know anything about the moon except for it's white and I see it every night. But is it? Well, actually, it technically looks gray. It doesn't look white at all because those little things on the gold tinfoil TV stand things are like white and they're whiter than the moon. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. We should watch some moon videos, but I don't know anything about the moon.
By meteorite impacts. The mission was a prime example of scientific discovery, where sending human geologists to the surface overturned a major, long held theory.
It just looks like dirt. It's like moon dirt, but it's gray dirt rather than like brown dirt. That's what it looks like. It just looks like moon dirt.
Also, a concern with the Service Propulsion System engine delayed the landing until engineers were confident it was safe. The crew left a far ultraviolet camera on the surface to study space from the moon.
Hmm.
They also deployed a small sub-satellite from the command module. It decayed earlier than planned, but still returned useful data. Apollo 17, the grand finale. Commanded by Gene Cernan, this was the final mission of the Apollo program.
Hmm.
It was the only mission to carry a professional scientist, geologist, Harrison Jack Schmitt, and was the most scientifically
That's a
productive
big
of
rock.
all the landings. They explored the Taurus Littrow Valley, discovered orange soil of volcanic origin, and
Really?
spent over 3 days on the surface.
It it's crazy because even color pictures of the moon look like they're in black and white because the sky is black and the ground is white. White. But like I can tell this is not a black and white photograph because there's hints of orange on the rover and a little bit on the mountain there too. But it's just so interesting because it looks everything's so smooth. You know, like the rock is obviously not smooth. You can see all the textures on that, but the mountain, it's like it looks like just a big hill of like sand or something. You know,
Cernan, the last man to step off the lunar surface,
who
left
was it?
discovered orange soil of volcanic origin and spent over 3 days on the surface. Cernan, the last man to step off the lunar surface, left with a promise that humanity would one day return. Highlights include the only night launch of a Saturn V,
Oh,
lighting up Florida like day.
that's cool.
Schmidt's find of bright orange soil at Shorty Crater turned out to be ancient volcanic glass beads, a strong sign of the moon's fiery past.
Hmm.
3 long EVAs, long rover drives, and heavy sample loads made this the science peak of Apollo. Thanks for watching. What do you think the next chapter of lunar exploration will look like? Let
So, like I said, I'll drop a video to this down below. It's really interesting that we never went back. I always find that really interesting, and I know even Artemis 2, which is launching hopefully in the next couple weeks, they're not going to the moon surface. They're just testing everything. It's like a shakedown again for when they will eventually, with the Artemis 3 or maybe even 4, step back on the moon. But it's really interesting that that astronaut was like, "Yeah, I promise we'll be back," and then like 60 years passed and we didn't go back. I guess. I mean, I guess if they brought back a bunch of stuff and they did a bunch of studies and we're like, yeah, it's just dirt and rocks and it poses no value to us, then I guess it's like understandable that they didn't find anything compelling enough to bring them back to the moon. It's a very expensive endeavor. They were doing it for like morale and a little bit of politics and like for the sake of the achievement. But I guess if they didn't find anything of value on the moon, then it's like Why waste $1 billion trying to get back up there, you know? But still, I find it interesting that, again, over the many, many years, tens of decades since, the initial moon landings and the Apollo missions, we've like never gone back. I just find that really interesting. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Like I said, audio, video upgrades are on the horizon. They will be here at some point, but until then, I'm just going to keep watching stuff. If you want me to watch anything specific, drop a comment, and I would appreciate a like and subscribe just so I know that there's humans out there who are actually watching me do this because I don't even know that anyone's watching me at this point. So, anyways, y'all have a great day.